Okay, let me switch back over to my screen, my presentation. Hang on. Okay, can somebody let me know if they can see my presentation one more time? And then we will get started. Okay, thank you, Ronnie. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started this evening. And I want to thank you, first of all, for your time this evening, for joining us to talk about record books. We've got a lot of changes that have happened for 25 and 26, so we want to be sure that everybody is aware of those changes and able to incorporate the information for this year. And so, um, hang on one second. Let me get back to my screen. Okay, so first of all, what I want to do is just go through and tell you in a summary format what the changes are for 25, 26. I did send this to you in the email with the link, so you do have the details on all the changes. So when you have a moment, please go back and look at those attachments, because all the information you need to help your children be successful in completing their record book is included in the handouts. So just to give you a quick summary of what was updated for 25, 26, we replaced the 4-H story, and if you recall what the 4-H story was, it was approximately 10 pages long, lots of information, a very detailed essay format. And so that has been replaced with a narrative that is entitled About Me. And this is a narrative that is applicable for all age divisions, whether your child is a junior, intermediate, or senior age division youth. So they will all complete this narrative, and we'll talk more in detail about what that is composed of. Next, we've had a My Year in Photos section added. In the past, we had photographs that were either incorporated into that 10-page story or added at the end of the story. This year, it will be added at the very end of this, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Not at the end of the record book, but end of the first narrative, About Me. So you'll have the About Me narrative, and then one page in which you can have photographs that reflect my year in 4-H. All right, then moving on, section 4 that was entitled Other 4-H Projects has been removed. So all the information on your child's 4-H project will be captured in section 1. This was a bit confusing to individuals as far as, do we put information on our projects all in section 1? Or, how do we overlap those into section 4? So that has been completely just taken out. So all of the information pertaining to one's 4-H experience will now go in section 1. All right, another big change this year is that your whole record book can encompass your entire 4-H career. In the past, it was the current year and the past 3 years. Now you can tell your story, showcase all your leadership, your community service, and so forth in your record book. So the only thing we want to remember is that if you have experience as a Clover kid, we do not need to include that information. It's just going to be all directed towards your 4-H experiences. So grades 3 as a junior all the way through your senior age division. All right, and then as far as categories, we've added a new category to record books, and it's entitled Open or Self-Directed. So if you have a record book that does not fit into one of the designated, there's 25 categories, and one of the other 24 categories, maybe as an example, you show exotic livestock such as alpacas. Well, we do not have a category that's just directed towards alpacas. So you would use this open or self-directed category to reflect your project experience. Another example would be entrepreneurship. This would be a great area to indicate your experiences in that project. So There is more details in the handout I sent you on all the categories. There's a complete description of all 25 of them and what um, would be classified under those particular project areas. So you will want to take a look at that and make sure when you're indicating the project area in which your child is participating or reflecting their main project, that it reflects one of those categories. All right. Another change this year is that all record books must be typed. It's very, very rare in the past few years that I've seen a handwritten record book. But now the expectation is going to be that all record books are typed. So we do understand that maybe some of those younger kids, their keyboarding skills may not be up to full typing speed. They most definitely can use an adult, whether that's a parent, an adult leader, or even an agent if they have time set aside to do that, to type those record books. But they must be in a typed format on the forms. And then lastly, we have discontinued our use of Z Suites. And I know this was very popular in District 5, which is awesome. I really was promoting the use of this because I felt it was a great, easy way to capture data so that it made it a lot easier to incorporate the information into a record book. However, very, very few individuals were taking advantage of utilizing this service, and it was very costly in relation to the small number of participants that were utilizing it. So this has been discontinued. We did not renew our license this year. However, starting with our next 4-H year for 26-27, we have a brand new system coming, an event online registration system that will replace 4-H online. So all of those rocks and tomatoes you've wanted to throw at that system, hopefully you won't have to do that anymore, because I know it has been frustrating, not only for you as a parent or an agent, but also for me, trying to identify, locate areas and where you enter information and so forth. So we have a whole new system coming. As I said, it'll start in September, and it's going to be called TX4H, so Texas 4-H. And that's where all our information will be captured as far as enrollment goes, registration in our district and state events. And then the beauty of this system is it's all going to be housed internally through Texas 4-H. So we will not have to go outside and depend on another business helping us to get our system updated when we have changes just specific to Texas. Another beautiful aspect of this is the fact that when your child is enrolled in a particular event, that information will be captured in the family profile that will feed automatically into the record book section of Texas 4-H online. So hopefully that will help to capture those important competitions that your child has participated in. You'll even be able to go back into your family profile after the event and add any leadership components or add other activities that your child has been involved with in relation to their club or at the county level. And that will all automatically feed into the record book section that will be part of Texas 4-H online. So I hope that those new changes will be beneficial to you in utilizing that new system, and that we will get all the bugs worked out before that rolls out in September. The state is in the process of testing that right now, and we as specialists are working through and looking at the different sections and basically trying to break the system so that we can make sure that it's tweaked and ready to go when September 1 comes in just a few short months. All right, so that's a summary of the updates for 25-26. As I said, you can look at the handout that I sent that has this information more in detail. And then as we're going through the slides, looking at the different sections of the record books, I will be pointing out those changes as we move along. And just to let you know, if you do have any questions, If you will please put those in the chat box, and at the end of this presentation, I'll go back and quickly look through those and answer those if they were not addressed during the presentation. Okay, so let's talk about the purpose or the objective of even doing a record book. So our record book allows kids to do 4 different things. It's going to allow them to show how they've grown within the project year, what they've learned, perhaps maybe what they've improved on, how they've grown. Um, not every 4-H year and project is successful. So that's an opportunity also for those kids to show what they did, and then also to be able to use those records to look back to see how they need to maybe tweak their project to do to meet their goals that they have set for the upcoming 4-H year. So record books are also used as a goal setting tool so that the kids can take a look, reflect on what they did previously, look at what they're going to do in the future within their main projects, or maybe they even want to explore some new projects. So that could be part of their goal setting. But it is important for our youth to set goals when the new 4-H year begins so that they have a way to be able to set objectives and look at where they're going to be moving forward and what they want to achieve within the 4-H year. Then it also allows our kids to understand the value of keeping records. So we as adults keep records, and one that comes to mind at this time of the year is keeping all receipts and information pertaining to our income tax and so forth, so we can get those important forms submitted as an adult to the IRS. Not that that's always a fun process, but it is important to keep track of records and have some sort of formal record keeping system so that when documentation needs to be submitted, whether it's for paying bills or whether it's applying for a job, maybe completing information for an application for college admissions and so forth, or even scholarships, then having a system in place and teaching the kids how to do that helps them to be successful. And keeping a record book can be that means to completing that documentation. And then, of course, it helps our kids to gain confidence in not only their project, but putting things down in writing and being able to reflect and be able to present that information to other individuals. Okay, so let's now talk a little bit, which we've done, but just talk a little bit more about goal setting. So our goal setting is typically done at the beginning of the 4-H year. So you can see what you have, what you worked on last year. Perhaps your goal is to be able to show your poultry project at an upcoming county livestock show. Well, you would want to set some goals. Maybe that's a feeding schedule. Maybe that's weight gain for those chickens or those broilers and so forth. But putting that down in writing helps those kids to understand about goals, and then looking back at the end of that project season to see, did I meet those goals? If I did, great. And what were the results of setting those goals? Was I able to place in the county livestock show? Or maybe I have higher goals. Maybe I want to take my poultry to Houston and show in a major livestock show. Well, you obviously have to have goals to do that too. And what did you do to get to Houston as far as keeping your project healthy and so forth. So setting goals are very important. And then another way that you can reflect is to keep a journal. There's a lot of kids that still journal these days. And so keeping information in a journal, whether that's a day-to-day feeding schedule or, how they competed or participated in the food and nutrition project or photography, whatever it might be, but putting that information in writing in a notebook or some sort of form, maybe it's electronic version, so that they can then capture that information and put it in their record book. And then, of course, everything ties back to reflecting. Did I meet my goals? Yes or no? And if I did, great. And how did I get to those goals? If I didn't meet my goals, what do I need to do differently next year in order to meet those goals? So record keeping is a process that we do on a daily basis as adults, and it's also a very important life skill that we need to help our children to understand and be able to be successful at. All right, so let's move into the actual components of the record book. This document that you see on the screen is called the Record Book at a Glance. And so you can find this in the Family Guide to Record Books. I've also included that as a handout for you to be able to download. So each year, this document, the Family Guide, gets updated with any changes that are reflective for the new 4-H year. And so what it is a summary of every component, each component that goes in the record book by age division. So you may have more than one child that's completing a record book, and this is a great tool to be able to utilize so you can ensure that you have all the different parts that are required, whether the child is a junior, an intermediate, or senior. There's also criteria as far as who needs to record each of the different sections. And if you, like, for example, take a look at the narrative section. So you can see the About Me narrative that I just talked about. That goes at the very front of the record book. And so if the child is a junior age child, then they have a maximum of 1 page, just like the intermediates have 1 page and the seniors. But let's look down at maybe section 1 under project experiences. So you can see there is a difference in the maximum number of pages that is permitted based on age division. So if you're a junior age child, then you can submit up to 4 pages under section 1, 5 as an intermediate, and 6 as a senior. So this takes each of the sections, each of the narratives, and breaks it down by age division. So it's a quick glance at the record book so that you can use this as a checkoff sheet if you'd like to ensure that all the different components are there, that you have the minimum and the maximum, you haven't exceeded those different sections. All right, the main thing you want to make sure for 25-26 is that you are using the correct forms. So if you've submitted a record book in the past, that is wonderful. But make sure that you are utilizing our forms for 25-26, which are located on the Texas 4-H website, because as I said, section 4 went away. And so, you need to make sure that you have, excuse me, on this page, it says section 5. So I already see a little typo right here that needs to be corrected at the state level. So I'm going to let them know. But anyway, the section 4 that was entitled Other 4-H Projects went away. So anyway, this summary is a good checkoff to use in keeping track of what needs to be in those record books. And just to correct myself, these sections are correct. I was thinking there was still a section 7 in there, which that got reformatted. So these sections that are listed here are correct. You can also see at the bottom of this summary, there is the college and career exploration. These are additional narratives. This is required for your intermediate and seniors. And then there's a separate essay prompt narrative for seniors only. This will change every year. Okay, this year the essay prompt has to do with leadership. And when you look into the Family Guide, it is going to tell you exactly what the prompt is. It's also going to give you that information within those record book forms so that you and your child are making sure that the correct prompt is being answered for 25-26. Okay, so keep this handy as you're doing your record book, and then you'll make sure that you have met the criteria as far as your minimums and maximums and not exceeded those allowances. All right, so when we're looking at the record book, there are 4 parts. Okay, the first part is the personal information page. And that's what's on the screen right now. So each record book will have this page in the front, and this is to verify and certify that the information, the demographics are correct. We've got the child's name, the correct county, what their age division is, how many years they've been in 4-H, and then most importantly, their category. So this is where you're going to list what the main project area of this record book is about. So what you're primarily focusing on. Doesn't mean you cannot include information in other projects that your child may be involved with during his 4-H career, but we want to indicate the main project that your child has been involved with and the number of years they've been involved in that project. Then at the bottom of the page, your child will need to sign certifying that the information provided in this record book is complete, and you as a parent will also need to sign off on this. In the past, we've asked for the county agent to sign off on that, but they are going to go in, and when you register or upload this record book to be judged, that is where they're going to do the certification. So if they approve your child's record book when you register it to be judged, then that is the certification project that the agent is going to use and certify that it is ready to be advanced onto district or state. Okay, let's look at our first narrative that we have. So these are the general guidelines for the About Me narrative that all 3 age divisions will include. It needs to be typed, single spaced. In the past it was double, so now we've moved to single space. You need to use a standard font such as Times New Roman, Calibri, Arial, and use 12 points on your font. Okay, so I know sometimes people have a lot to say, but when you're typing in those smaller fonts, it's very hard for us to read. And then again, on the flip side, it doesn't need to be 18 point either, because that's just not good use of the space that you have. You need to also make sure you're writing in first person, using words like, I did this, I was involved in my project in this way. So using those words, so it makes it very personal because your child is talking about what they did, what he or she did from their perspective. All right, so we want to make sure that those narratives are authentic, they're personal, and they demonstrate growth rather than just having a table format that just lists by bullet form. So we want to tell a story in one page, basically. So we want to also emphasize the quality of the experiences that your child has had in 4-H instead of a quantity. That is so much more important than a child that did 10 leadership activities versus one that in which they had a lot of meaningful growth. All right, so our focus is on our projects in which we achieved goals, we overcame any type of challenges, and the impact that that project has made on yourself or on other people. So this is going to be also limited to 3,500 characters. So that means that a space counts as a character. So typically this is approximately one single spaced page. So when you get to the end of that 3,500 character limit, you'll need to check that. I highly recommend that when you're typing up your narratives to use a Microsoft Word or other type of formatting program that allows you to be able to count those characters and see how it's going to look on a page before you copy and paste it into the form. Okay, because that way, if you're using such as Microsoft Word, it has a grammar check, a spell check, and so forth. So that will help you to catch maybe some of those errors that you don't necessarily see as you're typing. Okay, moving on. So there are 3 types of narratives. As I said, the About Me narrative, all 3 age divisions will complete the About Me narrative. That's going to be the first part of your record book after the personal page. Then you're going to have, if you're an intermediate and senior, a college and career narrative. And this is where you're going to talk about what you've done to prepare yourself for after high school, whether you're going to go to college, a university, maybe you're going to go right into the workforce, perhaps you're going to go on to a technical school. So whatever that may look like for each individual, that information is going to be provided. Again, it's going to be one page with a limit of the 3,500 characters, and that will be expected for our intermediates and seniors. And then the third narrative is going to be the essay prompt. This is only required for seniors with the same criteria: one page, single spaced, 12-point font, 3,500 characters. And again, that changes from year to year. This year's narrative is, I will just read it to you so you'll hear it, but you'll need to look at that on the in the family guide. But it says, describe a challenge you faced and how you overcame it, or explain a new leadership role you took on. What did you learn about yourself, and how has this experience shaped your goals, values, or approach to life? So in this narrative, we want our senior age kids to focus on resilience, their leadership, their personal growth that they experienced in their 4-H year. They need to also provide specific examples of addressing this prompt. What were those lessons learned? How do those lessons tie into their future goals and maybe even their personal values? So all of that needs to be reflected within their essay prompt. All right, so 3 narratives, one for all age divisions, college and career for intermediate and senior, and then a specific that changes each year essay prompt for seniors only. So the college and career exploration and the senior only essay prompts will be located at the very back of the record book. So you've got your personal page, your About Me narrative, and then we're going to move on to our 4-H year in photos. So each child will have one page in which they can represent their 4-H year. So that's going to use about 4 to 6 photographs in one page. So we want them to be large enough that the judges can actually see your child in the photos. And, be creative in your design. You're welcome to use captions, a special layout, a collage, whatever it's going to take to tell your story about your project. So one page to do that. So instead of incorporating that into the narrative, it's going to be on a separate page after your About Me essay prompt. Okay, so your photos should reflect your project work, perhaps any of your leadership roles you've had, community service, and any of your personal highlights that have happened within 4-H. Now, for an example, if you were maybe on the swim team at school, that is wonderful and that's great. You can showcase that information in the section in which you talk about your non-4-H experience. So we want to reserve our year in 4-H photos because it is titled My 4-H Year in Photos on experiences you've had in your 4-H year. Now, we do encourage you to reflect your experiences from the current year in this section. However, if you have a really special picture from previous years in 4-H, you're welcome to include those, but our focus should be in the photograph section on your current 4-H year. All right, and then we want to show that how you were engaged with your project. So if you had a picture of you standing next to your steer and you're getting ready to, go into the ring and so forth, then, that's more of a posed photograph and doesn't really tell a lot about your engagement with that steer. However, if you have a photograph that reflects you in the barn, maybe blowing out the steer's hair, trimming, doing those types of things, any type of grooming, then that is a great reflection of you being engaged with your project. So those are more valuable examples of photos than those posed and staged photographs. All right, so you shouldn't have any narrative in this section. You may have captions again, but showcasing your photographs is what is expected in this section. So make sure and keep it simple, not overly busy and cluttered, because then it's hard for those judges to capture your story and your photographs underneath all of the information. All right. So let's look now at our sections. So we've reduced our sections from 7 down to 6. So the same section of forms are going to be used across all 3 age divisions. The same form, the same amount of content, the same number of allowable entries. Well, excuse me, I just saw that. No, that is not true statement. The number of allowable entries does vary. So that's how we're going to use that summary sheet at the beginning of the family guide. So we make sure that we are staying within that allotted amount. And then remember, we can capture all our information for our entire 4-H career instead of just the last 3 years and the current year. So all our experiences. All right, so you're going to do one set of report forms to cover your 4-H career. So you do not need 5 leadership forms if you've had 5 years in 4-H. Just one form in which all your information is captured for that particular section. All right, do not forget to include the current year, because that's the one that's going to be looked at most closely. So include that information too. Don't forget and leave that part out. That's very important. Okay, section 1 is where the youth are going to document their 4-H project experiences. This is going to be where you can list all the cool and neat things you've done and what you've learned in relation to your 4-H project. This is your opportunity to tell the world, look at what I've done in 4-H. Look at what I've learned. See how I've grown. So you can include any type of workshop, contest, tour, research, computer learning activities, anything you've studied, maybe written documentation, interviews you've done, that type of information that reflects how you've been engaged with your project. That might be with a project club, it may be a self-directed project, both are fine. But this is where you're going to show the judges what you've done in 4-H over the years. All right, so any of those learning experiences that you've been been engaged with, you've achieved maybe goals, this is where you're going to showcase that information. All right, so remember, all 4-H years may be presented here. Your Clover Kid experience is great, but we want to focus on our 4-H years experience. So as a junior, you can use up to 4 pages to showcase this information. Intermediates can use up to 5, and seniors can include up to 6 pages. Section 2 is where you're going to showcase your 4-H leadership experiences. So remember, everything we do in leadership is at a level, whether that's your club, your county, your district, state, and it could even be national or international. So this is going to be a table format. And when you pull up that form, you will see that it's going to have a table in which you're going to code that leadership experience. And you're going to use, for instance, if it's county, you're going to use the code CO, but it shows you on the form what those codes look like. It's also going to ask you what the year was that you did this leadership activity. Now, if you've completed the leadership activity in more than 1 year, you are more than welcome to group those together and put those years. So maybe you did something in 2020, and 2021. So you can include both of those years and document that on one line. That will allow you to have more opportunities to showcase your leadership activities, because there is a limit on how many activities you can submit. As a junior, you can submit up to 10 entries, so 10 leadership activities and 1 page. Intermediate, it's 15, and seniors 25 and up to 3 pages. So you'll need to keep that in mind when you're documenting. And of course, quality is better than quantity. So perhaps you led the Pledge of Allegiance at your club meeting and you did that multiple times. Well, I would definitely group that together. That's a great leadership activity, but that's probably something that is expected as a junior. But as a senior, you might want to showcase other leadership activity that you did. Perhaps maybe you served as the treasurer for your club, or you led a particular activity. Maybe you went to commissioner's court and did a presentation. So think about those leadership activities, because some kids may have many leadership activities they want to showcase, but you want to showcase those that are higher in quantity, quality versus quantity. So think about those higher level activities that you've done and showcase those on this form. You're also going to list your role. What position were you in? Were you a member of the club? Were you serving as the president? What was your role in completing this leadership activity? Did you put it together? Did you organize it for your club? So you'll list that information here along with your responsibilities, your duties, and most importantly, your accomplishments. So what was the impact of doing this leadership activity? How did that make you feel? How did you grow? How did you have improvements if you've done this before? So you're going to list all that information in this table on your leadership. All right. So also you're going to show if this was a leadership activity in relation to promotion. So that means, were you promoting 4-H in some way? Were you out marketing your 4-H county council, or marketing your robotics club? Or maybe you were functioning as a volunteer. So maybe the president of your club asked for club members to help with this activity. So how were you involved? So that's talking about your roles. And then also, maybe it was a position in which you were elected by your peers. And so you'll need to denote if you were elected into that role or if you were appointed. Appointed means that an adult, maybe a project leader or a county agent, appointed you to this leadership role. So look at those activities that you've done in leadership, and you'll denote whether it was in the realm of promotion, volunteerism, whether you're elected or you were appointed. Okay, section 3 is where you're going to highlight all your wonderful things in community service. So community service is built into our project learning and our clubs. And so this is also a table format in which there are limits to the number of entries that you can include. So if you're a junior, you can include up to 10 community service activities that you are involved with. Intermediates, your limit is 15 entries, and seniors, it's 25. This is set up very similar to the leadership form in that you're going to list the year that you did this community service, what your role was, and what the name or what type of service activity you did, and most importantly, what that impact had on you for completing that community service project. Some examples of those, maybe you did a food collection. Maybe you collected coats for a site, in your county. Maybe y'all did some sort of visitation. You went to the nursing home and made Valentine's cards for the residents there. Maybe you did an educational presentation, whether that's to a civic organization or to maybe even the commissioner's court. So this is where you're going to list all your community service. You need to think about when you're listing, what did I do to help other people because of 4-H? So how did you take your role as a 4-H member or an officer or appointed into that position? And how did you use your experience in 4-H to make life better for someone else? All right. So then moving on to section 4, this is where you're going to highlight all your 4-H recognition and awards that you have received over your 4-H career. This is going to be presented in it's a blank form basically with a header. So you can create a table, bullets. You can put it in a narrative format if you choose to do so. You can create a table. So you're allowed to be creative in this section as far as how you're going to showcase your 4-H recognition and awards. Remember, we're showcasing 4-H here. So some of those awards you've received in other organizations are great, but you can showcase that information under your non-4-H opportunities. So here we're going to showcase those 4-H recognition that you've had. So our criteria in this section is juniors, 10 entries, intermediates, 15, and senior, 25. I hope you see how this is following the same across each section as far as the number of entries that you can provide. It stays the same for each age division. That helps to simplify this process and ensure whether whichever age division your child falls into, that it's consistent across the board so that there's not errors made in submitting those entries. All right. So then section 5, this is going to be where you can showcase anything you've done outside of 4-H. So this is limited to 1 page. So doesn't matter which age division you are, you've got 1 page to do so. This is going to be in a format in which you can include it as a table, bullets, other creative way that you want to. Maybe you want to express this as a narrative, but that is up to you. But you need to make sure, so this isn't over your entire student career, but this is limited to the current year and the 3 preceding 4-H years. Okay, and if you're a junior, 2 years, because you can only be a junior for 3 years. So keep that in mind, that there is a limit. It's not everything you've ever done since you were born, but the current year and the preceding 3 years is what we want to focus on, because you only have 1 page to do so. And we know that our kids are involved in other activities outside 4-H, and we want to allow them to be able to showcase that information here, whether that's FFA, organizations that they're involved with from a school perspective, even if they're involved with activities maybe in their church or youth groups or other community organizations. So they can showcase all their involvement on this page. All right. Then section 6, this is the last section of the record book as far as your forms go. This is your college and career exploration. So this is where you're going to answer the question. At the very top, in the header, it's going to ask the question, as of today, what career would you choose? So this is a great way as you mature in your 4-H experience to look back and see, when I was 9 years old as a junior, I thought I wanted to be a welder. Well, now I'm a senior in high school. I'm getting ready to graduate, and my career goals have shifted. And now I want to go into ag journalism. So it's kind of cool to look back over the years and see through your record books how that has evolved. Some kids, they start on one career path when they're very young and carry that out throughout their adulthood. And so, anyway, that question is posed of all three age divisions, and that needs to be answered. So don't skip over that. I have seen that missed in those record books, and that's an important part of the judging portion. All right. So this is also a narrative um, format. So you can take the liberty to be creative. You can create a table, bullets, or an essay, however you want to reflect what you've done to explore and get ready for college and career. All right, so you can talk about maybe some job shadowing you've done. Maybe you've worked at a part-time job. Maybe you've taken a tour of a college campus. Perhaps you've done some research. Maybe you've been brainwashed since birth to be an Aggie. I know that happened to my children. So whatever you've done to get prepared to move out of your high school years, your schooling onto further exploration into your career as an adult, or whether you're going to continue your education and what path you're looking at pursuing. So there are limits in this. That's same thing, juniors 10, intermediates 15, and intermediates 15. Well, seniors says 15 too. So I need to go back and look at that. I just now noticed that. So I want to clarify that. Look at whatever it says in the family guide, that or the summary, to make sure that we are all on the same page with that. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. Look in the family guide because I want to tell you the correct information. Okay, so it does say that. So yes, so juniors 10, intermediates 15, and seniors also 15. Okay, so let's look at now the narrative that is required on college and career exploration for our intermediates. And, well, so sorry, I skipped ahead. So remember, this is also where your section will go as far as answering your questions about your exploration. So you get up to one page, intermediates and senior, single space, to be able to explain what your college and career exploration will be. All right. So let's look at what the judges are going to look at when they're reviewing your record book. So the judges, if you choose to have your record book judged, now remember that is optional. We encourage every youth that's in 4-H to complete a record book for the record keeping purposes and to learn about goal setting. You can submit those record books for judging at the county level. And then if they qualify at the county, then they will move on to district. And then if they qualify at district, which I'll talk about in just a moment, then they could go on to state record book judging. So that is up to you, and there's different criteria for each of those levels. So we want to keep that in mind, as that is an opportunity. Also, I'm going to share on the next screen or in two screens, the dates that those record books will be due at the different levels. So when we submit those books to be judged, those individuals that are doing the judging will look and evaluate based on a child's project work, their leadership, community service, any awards that they've received in 4-H, and also their non-4-H activities. So there are scorecards that are used for judging each of the record books. And so I'll show you those in a slide in just a moment. But our record books are judged on content. We look at the quality of the member's experience. So we want to focus as a judge on the impact that that particular activity, that project, that leadership, that community service had on that 4-H member. So when somebody takes a look at that record book, they look also in relation to how long that child has been in 4-H, because obviously they're going to have more experiences the longer they're in 4-H. So a child that has been in 4-H for 2 years versus somebody that's been in for 9 years, their record book is going to look a lot different. However, judges will take that into consideration based on what their quality of their experience has been. All right, so we need to also focus on those learning activities that take place outside of our 4-H clubs and our projects groups. You know, what have we done to enhance our experiences beyond being in a club or being in a project? That could be doing some outside competitions. That could be participating in other organizations. So looking at just not only those project experiences, but how you've excelled or how you've grown outside of 4-H, but within your project area. So that is also very important. So maybe you did something in showmanship, and that wasn't particularly a area that was of focus within your project area, but maybe you got an award for your showmanship. Well, that's a great thing to be able to showcase, and that judges will be looking for also. All right, so let's talk about just, which I've already talked on a little bit about Z Suites. So if you've done Z Suites and submitted your information into this database, you know, unfortunately, it's going away because we did not have the participation we were anticipating to have when we started down this road a few years ago. However, you can use the forms that are provided on the 4-H website so that you can type up all the information that needs to be included in your record book. Again, remember, we're going to be transitioning to a new system this next 4-H year, in which your data will be captured from your event registration, and you'll be able to go into your family profile, much like Z Suite's formatting, and enter the information in relation to your leadership, community service, and your project experiences that will be then put into your record book automatically through our new online system. All right, so that is another reason why we're going to typing too, because everything will have to be entered into the Texas 4-H system that will go into our record books. Okay, here's a look at the score sheets. This changed a little bit this year also, because we have less on the essay narratives for our juniors. The maximum score that a junior can receive is 80. So keep that in mind when you're getting those score sheets back and looking at those. If your child is a junior and they received an 80, that is perfect. That is excellent. So bear that in mind. And intermediate, the maximum amount of points they can receive is 90. And then seniors, the maximum amount is 100. So take a look at those scorecards. This is what the judges will be using to evaluate and review the information in which is provided in the record book. And you can also see from the scorecards the maximum amount of points for each of the different sections. So it's also broken down this way, so you can use the scorecard if you want. And this is found in the family guide as a check sheet also. So you can use this to check off each of the different sections, because there's a little bullet underneath each one to let you know what needs to be included within this section and what needs to be highlighted. All right, so moving on. So historically, our record books have been bound in a cover, and you've probably seen those. It's a green kind of corrugated folder that's got the clover on the front. So keep in mind that if you're submitting your record book at the county level, you are welcome. You don't have to use the 4-H cover. You can use a regular notebook or a binder. That is fine. If you're submitting your record book at the district level or the state, you do not need a cover because those books will be electronically submitted via Submittable. So, and that's for District 5. So I know I had some individuals sign up for this training this evening that were in other districts. So you'll want to make sure that you're following the guidelines for your district. But for District 5, a record book cover is not required at the district or the state level. If you want to have one of the 4-H record book covers, those can be ordered from the National 4-H online supply. Sometimes your county agents have some of those record books that they will provide to you. So check with them and see. Okay, let's look at our dates for District 5. So you'll need to reach out to your county agent to find out what date that your book is due to be judged. If you're doing a book to be judged at the county level, it may vary from county to county. So make sure you know what that date is. Get that information from your county agent and make sure your record book has been completed and turned in whatever format they are requiring. Okay. From a District 5 perspective, you will be able to register on 4-H Online. There's no charge to submit a district record book. You'll just need to register on 4-H Online between May the 18th and June the 18th. This lets us know to be expecting your record book in Submittable. It'll also tell us your age division, what your category is, and this is also for your agent to certify by approving your registration on 4-H Online that they have read your record book and that your record book qualifies to be judged at the district level. So those books are to be uploaded in Submittable by June the 25th. This information on how to submit through Submittable, how to register your book through 4-H Online will be sent out here in the next month. So you'll be receiving that from your county agent. It'll also be published on our district Facebook page. So you can see that along with this flyer so you can remember those important dates. Now, if you're an adult that's interested in seeing other record books, reading, judging, we welcome you to do so. This is a great way as a parent or a volunteer to see and read other record books. There will be a judges training offered. This will be a virtual training via Zoom on June the 30th at 1 p.m. So mark your calendars now. More information will come out about registering to be a judge. You will need to participate in this judges training in order to be able to judge record books at the District 5 judging on July 7th. So this is an opportunity for you to read and see how other people have put their record books together and maybe give you some ideas too in helping your child to be successful in record books. So our District 5 judging will take place on July 7th. And you can see below the list of record book judging categories and the new one that's listed this year, open/self-directed, that has been added. You'll also may notice that the agricultural category has been removed. So every project under agriculture should be able to fit in one of these other categories, whether it's goat, horse, poultry, beef, sheep, swine, or rabbit. If you have something that it does not fit under one of those categories and you're looking at an agriculture project, maybe even agricultural mechanics, one of those exotic species like alpacas, then that's going to go under your open or self-directed. Other than that, most projects will fit under one of these categories. So if you're not sure, again, look at the handout that was included with this information, because it lists in detail each of these categories and what goes where. Okay, let's look at a few important general guidelines when you're putting your record book forms together and your essays, that you want to make sure if there's a page that is a form, it has a header at the top. It's going to say section 1, section 3, section 6. So you need to make sure that those headers are there. So if you use a word processing system to type up any of your information, that is great. But you need to make sure that you're copying and pasting that information into the actual form so that those headers are there. So do not remove those headers from the top of the page. All right, again, all record books will need to be typed. An adult can help those younger kids do that typing if needed. Be sure and check your grammar, your punctuation. This is another plus for using a word processing system, because if you have that turned on, that word processor, it will help you to correct those commonly made errors. Trust me, after you've read your same information over and over and over again, you may be blind to some of those errors, especially spelling. And sometimes that jumps off the page at our judges. So make sure and utilize those features in those word processing systems. All right, text margins. This is important also. So you need to make sure that you have on your left margin at least 1.5 inches, and then your top, right, and bottom margin, you can use anywhere between 1/2 inch and 1 inch. This is all laid out, all the general guidelines in the family guide in detail, so you'll have that information. As far as the type of paper that you utilize, use regular copy paper, typing paper, any type of white paper. Please do not paste and cut onto colored construction paper, those fancy papers that maybe you can purchase from a craft store and so forth. You do not need to use any type of sheet protectors or dividers. Each page is going to be evaluated, and that's why those headers are there, so that the judge can make sure that they don't skip any of your pages. They're going from your essays to your photographs to each of the 6 sections and on to the final 2 essays for our intermediates and seniors. You're welcome to be creative, and that changes from person to person, and that can be in your style of writing, your form, but make sure it's some sort of digital formatting is used, that you're using 12-point fonts, and it's a common reading font so that it is easy to be read by those judges. You want to, as far as any type of colored print, you're welcome to use other colors. I encourage that. If you want to bold a specific word or a number, go for that. That jumps out at the judges very easily. If you want to use a specific color, I would encourage your brighter colors. Don't use yellow or really pale colors, because sometimes that gets lost if something is copied or uploaded, but reds are great. Anything bright that jumps off the page would be good, but make sure that you're not using smaller than your 10-point, but 12 is required on your narratives, and your narratives must be single space. All right. Here's a list of the categories. Again, you can look at the information that I sent out on the details for each of these. So you'll need to pick and help your child to select. If they've got multiple projects that they've been involved with, that is fantastic. However, one project should be their leading main project, and that is where their focus needs to be on their record book, because on this record book, you're telling not only your career, but what your main focus has been. And so you want to showcase that, and that's where your category is going to come into play. All right. So if you do decide to submit your record book to be judged. After county, then if it qualifies for district, and then it qualifies for state as a senior. So senior record books that qualify at the district level can move on to state. And so if they win first place in their category, so there's 25 categories. So if we have 25 first place categories, then those kids may submit that record book in future years in the same category in which they earned first place. So it's not a terminal contest. If they place first one year, we want them to return next year, and hopefully they'll place first again. But those state record book winners do earn an opportunity to attend a conference, the Texas 4-H Leadership Conference. It's held over Thanksgiving break. There is a cost involved. It usually runs between $2,000 and $2,500, so keep that in mind. So even if don't let that dissuade you. If your child wants to compete and hopefully qualify at the state level, that's great. So if they place first place and that trip is not in their future as far as participating, that is fine. They can still place first. So, but if they would like to participate in that trip, they're eligible to do so if they place first. All right. And then lastly, I want to provide you my information to contact me. So if you have questions you think about after this program, I've listed my email address, also my phone number. That phone number does not tie into my office. It ties right into my computer, which also ties into my phone wherever I'm at. So feel free, if you've got additional questions, to reach out to me. If you want additional information on our record book contest for District 5, those will be posted on our Facebook page at District 5 4-H. Of course, this information is also available on our District 5 website at d54-8.tamu.edu. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to the chat box and see if you have any questions. If not, then I appreciate your time this evening, and know that this recorded program will be emailed along with the slides and the handouts again tomorrow. So be looking for that in your email. I'll also send it to all the county extension agents. So if you're not able to find that within your email, then you can reach out to them and get a copy. All right, so let's look at our questions that we have. How do you record projects that overlap 2 or more years? For example, calf scramble this January, calf bought in the summer, but the project is over the next 4-H years. So that's a great question. So you can most definitely do that. I would put the time period that you had that project going on. So there are projects that go on more than 1 year, and that's perfectly acceptable. Just denote that in your when you're talking about it in your essays. And then if there's leadership involved, again, you can denote that in by using multiple, 2019-2020 and so forth. That is totally fine. So not a problem. Okay. All right. I do not see any other questions. So last call, if anybody has any other questions that I have not addressed, you're welcome to put those in the chat box. And if not, I hope you have a great evening, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.